Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to talk about my own experiences with divorce and marriage and societal timelines and pressures and all those types of things. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So if you've been following the podcast for a while, you will know that I've been divorced. I got married at the age of 23 and was separated by 26 and officially divorced by 27. But I met him when I was 19. I was really young and I learned a lot in that whole process. Since my divorce, I've been in different relationships, and if you don't know already, recently I just got married, and it has been really interesting for me to see the differences in my experience and all the growth that happened in between, and just how I view marriage now, how I view partnership, how I view commitment, and the things that I was looking for in a partner completely changed once I got divorced. Obviously, there's the things that we all kind of want and know. You want to be loved, you want to love the person, all the kind of basics. But I think when I was at a younger age, I didn't really think of options and I didn't really think of compatibility. And the willingness for each partner to work on themselves as well as the relationship as they move forward, I think is just so crucial. And I didn't want to focus too much on the negative aspects of going through a divorce and all these types of things. That's pretty easy to guess. I think that what's important is the lessons learned from that experience. When I decided to get divorced at 26, I think the biggest realizations that I had personally was that societal timelines aren't shit. I think from a young age, I had this idea of what a relationship should look like in terms of timeline, and I don't know where it came from. My parents got married fairly quickly. They're still together to this day, but it's not like they dated for a certain number of months or years and then were engaged for a certain number of months or years and then got married and then waited to have a kid. Like, there was nothing like that in terms of steps that they took. But along the way, society taught me and kind of ingrained this thought into my head that you have a boyfriend, and if you're with them for long enough, then you should get engaged, and you should only be engaged for about a year, and then you get married. And once you get married, you wait maybe a year, but not longer than a year, and you have kids. Sometime along the way, between the age of like 16 and 21, that thought was ingrained into me. And I don't know if it was like the people that I was surrounded by, or I don't know if it was media, or like what was going on. And I still can't quite put a finger on that, but I had this idea in my head that that's what was going to happen. So I followed along. I was with my boyfriend. We were together for a few years. He proposed. And I agreed, and then we got married, and then he wanted to try having kids. Like, it was like this whole exactly the way things were supposed to go, quote unquote. And obviously, you have a spoiler alert to the end of that story. It ended in divorce, and it was not pretty. Divorce is not fun. As much as people try to make it amicable, it is the untying of two people, and it is grieving a future that you thought you had together. It's grieving the person you used to be or trying to find yourself again. There's all these complicated emotions that come along with it. But along with it being not fun, it's hopeful. It's hope for the future, for different things, for something better, whatever it might look like for you. But for me, I think the hopeful part was just that freedom of societal timelines don't mean shit. Like, that was the thing that I kept telling myself over and over again. Because when I decided to get divorced, when I decided that the marriage wasn't working anymore, I had thought to myself, and I had completely accepted the fact that no one was going to want me again. I wasn't going to date anymore. No one wants someone who's divorced. I had this picture of, I'm going to have to drink dry martinis now and wear big floppy hats. And for some reason, that was my vision of what a divorcee looked like. But I was 26. And now I'm like, oh my God, 26. That's so young. Like, most 26-year-olds are not even thinking about marriage right now, or maybe they're just started to think about marriage. And I was talking about divorce. This obviously depends on where you live, what the culture around that is like for you. But for me, I have 26-year-olds that I know that aren't even close to thinking about marriage. But then I do have 26-year-olds who are also about to get married, things like that. So it totally depends. But I was like, nope, not gonna happen for me. I'm out. Like, I've already been there, done that. I just want to focus on myself forever. And I made a vow to myself that I would stay single for at least a year and not commit to anything and just focus on myself. And I did that, and that 1 year actually turned into 2 years. And it was a really important time of my life of self-exploration, of partying, of going wild and crazy, but also of self-care and understanding and therapy and all that kind of stuff. And as like a little side note, I'm probably going to do a whole episode on this. Healing doesn't always look the same for everyone. For some people, it might be like, I'm not going to date ever, like 0 dating, like not even going out to meet new people. And for some people, like myself, I made it a mission to go on a million first dates. I was like, it's okay. I'm just going to say yes to people if they're like in my like type or whatever. I was going on dating apps and stuff, and I just wanted to meet and talk to people. I wanted to see what they were like, and I was really upfront and honest with them. I was like, I'm not looking for anything serious, which led to a lot of misunderstanding as well, because people thought I was like just in it to hook up, which like I did too, so it was fine. But I made it a point to be like, I'm doing this for me. My time and energy is not meant for anybody else, because I was in a long-term relationship where that was the main focus, was that I was focusing on that other person's needs and wants and desires and their work and all that kind of stuff. So I was like completely 180ing, and that led me into great relationships with people. I had connections with all sorts of amazing people. I had long-term relationships with people that created a lot of healing experiences for me. I learned what it was like to be in healthy dynamics and fix problems and identify problems. And I also learned that just because you love someone doesn't mean that it is always going to work out. I think that is one of the big things. Is love is one thing. I'm a very loving person. I think I fall in love like kind of easily. I know that about myself. It's something I had to learn, but I do know that about myself. I'm a very caring person. So for me, a big thing that I had to learn was that that alone isn't enough, because it blinds me from everything else. And what I mean by that is it blinded me from compatibility. It blinded me from equality in the relationship of like, is the love going back and forth, or is this person in love with me because I'm giving so much, or is that person giving too much to me and I'm not reciprocating? Like all these types of things. I had to kind of learn how to gauge all these things. And I think you learn that usually when you're in your dating era in your 20s, but I didn't have that because I was in a committed relationship for so long. So learning that process really, really helped me understand what I wanted, understand who I was, understand that my boundaries were my boundaries and that's okay. And just things like that. It was all like a learning process going through. And I know I would have never gotten there if I didn't go through that divorce. And at the time, it literally felt like the absolute worst thing that could have happened in my life. It was life shattering. It was heartbreaking. It was just awful. And I feared for the future at the time. That yes, there was that hopefulness. Yes, there was that like, I'm going to focus on myself, so this is great. But it was also really, really difficult. And I am so grateful for that 26-year-old version of myself to make that decision for me and move forward, because all of those lessons I learned in that process and the other relationships following that, and all the interactions and experiences and everything that followed that decision completely changed everything for me. And now I'm in a relationship that is just the most fulfilling I've ever had. And it's just been this kind of whirlwind because I wasn't looking for it at the time. I had gone through another pretty major breakup and I wasn't looking for anything serious. I was kind of back in that era of my life. And I was really intentional with who I was spending time with and who I was dating, but I was also having fun and I was trying to become more self-focused and self-centered. I was like trying to kind of be more like, I'm doing what works for me rather than trying to give. And that was hard and it was a process, but it ultimately led me to this relationship that is legitimately the best thing that has ever happened to me. I think that there was a lot of fear getting into this relationship at the beginning because I've been through this before. And I don't mean this as in this specific relationship, but like this feeling of this is something serious, this is going somewhere, this like hope. And I've had it shattered multiple times. So I'm like terrified that this is going to happen again. And I was even more terrified than I had ever been before because this felt big already from the start. Since we first met, I was like, This is not like anything else. There's something different here. There's something special here, and I don't want to lose it. And when we first got into this relationship and when things were getting more serious, I had that fear kind of stop me from really diving into it. I was like, this is crazy. Like, we're in a different country. I'm traveling. I don't know what's going on. But I decided to just full send and just kind of give it. And he and I had this conversation. We were both like, this is crazy. Like, what are we doing? But we both knew deep down that this is what we wanted. So we just went, whatever, screw it. We're just going to do it. I am so grateful that we did that, first of all. But also, I know that I was able to make that leap because in the past, I thought I had found someone I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, and it didn't work out, and I did still survive. So I knew I had that in my back pocket when my husband and I first started dating. And because of that, giving me a little extra courage to just dive in and go full send on everything, I'm able to be here today. So at the end of the day, I think all of my experiences, both negative and positive, and this kind of goes back to my last episode of looking at all the different ups and downs of your life, I think everything just allowed me the tools, the experience, knowledge, everything to get to where I am today, which is to be in a very fulfilling and happy marriage. At the end of the day, I think that divorce created such a big ripple effect in my life that got me to where I wanted to go, and I didn't know that at the time. So what I want to get across in this video to you is if you're going through a hard time right now, or if you're faced with a difficult decision, or there's stuff going on, just have a little bit of faith and a little bit of hope that it will work out eventually. But the work you put in now is a crucial aspect of that. And you are deserving of that effort and that work and that decision for what's best for you. Don't let anyone else tell you what is right for you. Of course, take people's advice, but take everything with a grain of salt, this included, and figure out what is the best thing that works for you. Don't let any societal pressures or expectations or timelines or any of that get in the way of you truly fulfilling what you want to do or your goals or anything like that. I'm not a fortune teller. I can't guarantee you that 6 years later, everything is going to work out the way it did exactly for me. But what I can tell you is that you are worth that effort and that energy and that time to work on yourself and to get to know yourself, to make the decisions that's right for you. That's all I want to get out there, is that this big thing happened in my life 7 years ago. I don't know, a long time ago. And it completely changed my life for the better. And it was the most awful thing that could have happened to me at the time, in that time. My hope is that in listening to this, you come to realize that your opinion is what matters the most in terms of what to do with your own life. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. If you do follow those societal pressure, timelines, expectations, all of those things, and you've made life choices that way, and you realize that's not what you want, that's okay too. We are human. Life is all about going through it and experiencing it. It's not about doing everything perfectly. There is no such thing as being perfect. There's no such thing as doing something right. There's no one life timeline that is what is considered right. Everyone has a different version of the way they do things, and that is what makes life interesting. So if you've made a mistake, if you've made a decision, or you're about to make a big decision, or you're about to go back on a decision you've made in the past, just know that it's okay. Things will be okay. It'll work out. You are resilient. You can put the work in, you can put the effort in to work on yourself to get out of that situation or to put yourself in a new situation. Again, I know, very vague. It's hard to give like direct advice because everyone's situation is so different. Legitimately, that was one of my favorite parts of being a therapist, and it still is that everyone's story is so different. There's no one size fits all advice for everyone. There's no one size fits all process for anything like all encompassing. And that's the thing with social work that I love so much as well, is we look at every single part of a person's life. Their social connections, their financial situation, their physical capabilities, their mental capacity, all of these things, all encompassing, make you as a person. So don't just watch a YouTube video and say that's all exactly what I need to do or anything. Make sure you put on your critical lens and look at everything from your own perspective. Does this apply to me? And you can pick and choose all the different little bits and tidbits of information that you get online and apply it to your own life in the way that works for you. There's no one size fits all for everything. And if anyone tells you there is, don't believe them. I'm so sick and tired of coaches and influencers and fitness gurus and whatever saying just do this thing and it'll work for you. That's just not how it works in my opinion. And if someone is trying to sell you something saying this is what you need to do, run away as fast as you can. And that's like my 8th tangent, so I'm just going to leave it there. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you are joining me in the morning, I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you're joining in the evening, I hope you have a restful night of sleep, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.